On Friday, we had this big ransomware attack worldwide. When you think of infrastructure and all that it encompasses, is cybersecurity a component part of that?
Of course it is. Cybersecurity is an issue that all segments of America face, and not the least of which is transportation. And really, what I think folks at DOT worry about is what could happen if there's a cyber attack against the FAA, or people that are controlling airplanes, or people that are involved at our airports. That probably could be the most serious kind of breach.
How much did you worry about this when you were sitting behind the desk there in the Secretary's suite at the Department of Transportation? How big a concern was cybersecurity?
Well, you know, it was 8 years ago. We served for 4.5 years. It was probably not as big a deal as it is today, but when you saw what happened over the weekend with the cyber attacks, it's a lot more serious today than probably it was during the time that I served as Secretary.
Yeah, last question on this. What kind of role should the government be playing in bettering cybersecurity? Is it something that the government should be taking the lead on? Is it something for corporations to take the lead on? How do you see that?
I think there needs to be a strong partnership between government and the private sector, but the government needs to take the lead. There are too many areas of our government that are really concerned about cyber breaches and cyber attacks. But we need the smart people that are out there and around the country that can help figure out the solutions.
You and I last spoke a couple of months back. We were waiting for a plan from the president when it came to infrastructure. We haven't gotten that thick a plan from him yet. Are you surprised by that, and how much does that sort of hinder the process, not having something on paper yet?
Well, it hinders the process in the sense that people are very anxious to know if the president is really going to come up with $1 trillion plan and a big, bold vision for transportation and infrastructure. But given all that the president has had on his plate for the first 100+ days, a Supreme Court justice nominee that was approved, the health care debate in the House and all the spits and starts with that, and certainly what's happened over the last week, it's not surprising. But I understand that Secretary Chow, the Secretary of Transportation, gave a speech today for the opening of Infrastructure Week, which begins today, and said that it's coming sooner rather than later. And we're all very anxious to see what that plan will be.
Do you think that the path has narrowed here in these 100+ days to getting to an infrastructure package? Do you think that the end result seems more in sight than it did before?
Absolutely. I do think this is still one of President Trump's top priorities. I think his vision, if it really is $1 trillion vision, is a very bold vision, one that we haven't seen in a long time. But it's going to have to incorporate a lot of different funding sources. It can't just be done with public-private partnerships. We need to raise the gas tax. We need to use tolling. We need to have an infrastructure bank. The combination of all of those things, I think, gets us close to $1 trillion. So I really hope that's what his vision looks like when we see it on paper in the next couple of weeks.
Let me quote something from you, something that you wrote for Bloomberg Government just a little while back in March. You said, "Every day of delay escalates our shared costs, jeopardizes our health, and risks our security, an option our country, economy, and communities can no longer afford." For someone like you, evangelizing for spending on infrastructure, what's the biggest challenge? Getting taxpayers, getting policymakers to care about this issue and care about enough to allocate resources to curb it?
Really making sure that it's easy to have a vision. There's 60,000 structurally deficient bridges. The interstate system is in a state of very bad repair. We have 50-year-old transit systems all over America that are falling apart. They need new cars, new infrastructure. The Amtrak system along the Northeast corridor is in a state of disrepair and needs a lot of money. The issue here is money. How are we going to fund this? How are we going to come up with a big pot of money to take care of roads and 60,000 structurally deficient bridges and Amtrak and our transit systems? This will require some very big thinking, very bold leadership in terms of coming up with the funding.
I imagine you've been contributing to that big thinking. What's the way forward as you see it? If it's more than a public-private partnership, what more should be done to attract that kind of investment?
Raise the gas tax 10 cents a gallon and index it. That gets you about $1 billion a year. Reinstitute the idea of an infrastructure bank. President Obama proposed it 5 or 6 times. a bank that allows for the selling of bonds and the use of private dollars, allow the states to do more tolling, allow for the idea that if the states raise their own gas tax, that they're incentivized then to really take advantage of more opportunities at the federal level. It takes a combination of about 5 different funding sources to get to that big, bold vision of $1 trillion.
Very quickly here, you must have been cheered to hear the president mention the gas tax in an interview with Bloomberg News. How are you going to brook that partisan divide? How are you going to get more people to support that?
Well, having a Republican president talk about raising the gas tax is certainly words to the ears of those of us who think it's long overdue. The gas tax hasn't been raised since 1993, and I hope he will continue that drumbeat, because if he does, he'll be able to persuade a Republican Congress. That's one of the important ingredients to getting to $1 trillion.